Ladies and gentlemen, it is once again me, Kagekaze, taking a look at Diablo. This time, no real gameplay to show you, as I'm kind of waiting for the results of your voting, both on my Facebook page and to find out what follower you might want. So far, the Enchantress has 2 votes, and that's it. So we'll see. I'll give us a bit more time on that one. But for now, Blizzard has released their information on patch 107. And there's a bit more to it than I thought there would be, so they're making some good strides here, but still not entirely sure if there's quite enough here. We'll take a look at it, we'll talk about it, see what's going on here. So first and foremost, dueling. So we now know what they have in mind for PvP for 107. We all knew that they had recently stated that they're going to remove Team Deathmatch. For whatever reason. I still don't quite follow that. But what they've let us know is dueling is in the game now, and it's got a very different way of doing it than it did in Diablo 2. In order to duel another player, you need to go back to New Tristram and talk to a guy called Neck the Brawler. And here you'll have, looks like, 4 different zones that you can actually fight in this arena. And it's going to be free-for-all combat. Now you would say, well, duh, it's dueling. Well, it's not just dueling. See, in Diablo 2, you kind of had a one-on-one duel, although that's kind of a misnomer because truth of the matter is you could go hostile with any number of players, and thus you would be fighting off this other group of people. Well, in Diablo 3, they're going to make it so not only do you have one-on-one dueling, but you can actually have 4 on one, well, not really 4 on 1, but basically you're going to do a free-for-all with up to 4 people. And you can do it in any number of styles. You can do 1-on-1, you can do 3 people, or you could do all 4. So you're not limited to just doing 2 and doing 4. You can do, 3-person melee if you want, or, free-for-all. So you have a couple options there. It's not as limiting as I thought it was going to be. I really thought they were just going to put in one-on-one duels and be done with it. And that was really disappointing to hear with the recent news that the Team Deathmatch was going to be gone. So at least we've got good news on that front. But it's still not quite the PvP experience I was looking for. We still have to wait for the next patch, major patch, the basically 1.1 to get the true PvP experience they want to give us. But they have told us what they're going to do regarding character death and hardcore mode. If you die, you'll be resurrected, and death is not permanent in the dueling zone. So that includes hardcore characters. You also will not take durability loss. And at any time, you can use your town portal to return to town, or you can take the portal out that's there, it sounds like. So that's great. At any time, you can just go ahead and leave. You're done. If you have a hardcore character, then you don't have to worry about sacrificing your hardcore character. You can just go ahead and fight and, have a good time with that character against whomever you want. So for this patch, we're also finding out that they're going to be focusing on 2 classes, the Wizard and the Monk. So what we're seeing here is they're mainly talking about damage buffs to the Wizard. So Arcane Orb, Blizzard, and Shock Pulse. So I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that. I haven't quite used Blizzard. Shock Pulse could probably use it. Arcane Orb, though, I'm not entirely sure really needs it, since it's kind of one of those AoE spells that you can cast while on the move. But they're also making small changes, possibly allowing Illusionist to reset the cooldown of slow time and increasing the slow time effect of Temporal Flux from 30% for 2 seconds to 60% for 3 seconds. So we're looking at some fairly decent buffing going on there for the Wizard, but that's honestly all we're looking at is pure buffs to kind of numbers here, which is kind of to be expected when we're looking at a 0.x revision. We're not looking at a major change to the game. So honestly, buffs, nerfs, tweaks to numbers that are very easily changed is what we can usually expect to see with this kind of a patch. Now, that includes the Monk here. We're going to talk about the Monk. They're going to get a big damage buff to all the Spirit Spenders. You guys remember that one pig patch that they did where they took every single class that had a resource spender and they said, hey, your resource spenders are not doing enough damage, and then they boosted them all? Well, it looks like they're going to do it again for the Monk. Apparently, they weren't satisfied with the damage increase that the monk got, and I would have to agree, having played a bit on my monk and trying them out. They were a very nice buff, very nice change, but they find that most people still would rather use their spirit to boost their mantras, which is understandable, and they want to get the damage back up for the monk. So yes, this is great. I can see that, honestly, because monks, their spirit resource, they really need it. Most of the time, they're spending it to survive, or using it for very specific skills. And having the spenders do more could really help, because I don't really see a lot of monks using certain damaging spenders a lot of the time when I'm with them. So hopefully this will be a good change. But the thing that kind of sucks about this is we're not seeing any changes in regards to the quality of life that they've been talking about for the monk. For example, there was a blog post stating that they wanted to make some major changes to the monk as far as playability was concerned. For example, letting things have more movement and utility on them. Now, I can kind of understand that. As I just said, we're at a 0.x revision right now. We're not doing a major patch incrementation here. So those kind of things will probably be reserved for the 1.1 release. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they'll do to monks, because quite honestly, I would really love to see the monk get more mobility. The monk, for as dexterous as he's supposed to be, has far less maneuverability than a lot of the other classes, and including, say, for example, the Demon Hunter. The Demon Hunter can move around a lot more easily than a monk can. Now, monks have a lot of really good abilities on their side, but a lot of monks feel like they have to sacrifice a lot of it for very specific abilities. So I'm hoping that we will see those changes sooner rather than later. Moving down, we find out they're going to make some changes to crafting. This is a really nice thing to see. So what are they going to do with crafting? Well, they've taken the success of the Infernal Machine and decided, hey, we want to do more with that. So they're going to add more account-bound crafting recipes that mimic kind of the Infernal Machine's ring, the Hellfire ring. So with this, they're going to make account-bound recipes for different slots, specifically gloves, pants, wrists, a chest piece, and an amulet. Now, these are probably not going to be as strong as the Hellfire Ring. That's kind of hard to say, because what they're saying here is that they will have 6 affixes and feature a primary stat, just like the Ring. So actually, they may be just as strong, to be honest with you, because looking at the price, I can see that. So these are probably going to be on that tier level above standard gear, especially since you can pick your primary stat, and then it gives you 6 or probably 5 random affixes. All right, and they're account bound, so you can't sell them. So you have to create them yourself, and they require a new reagent called Demonic Essence. Much in keeping with the Demonic or the Hellfire Ring, these Demonic Essences will drop from elites, and the chance of the drop will be based on your monster power level in Inferno. They are currently planning a 20% increase at the drop rate at monster power 0, so you still have a good chance at 0, with each monster power increasing it by roughly 15%. So they're saying here Monster Power 1 will be 23% chance to find it, all the way up to an 80% chance, or almost 81% chance to find these essences at Monster Power 10. So if you're looking for quick farming, you still can use Monster Power 0, and you've got a 20% chance on each elite you fight. That's not a bad chance, considering how quickly you can mow through monsters at Monster Power 0 nowadays. These Archon Armor recipes, or the Archon Armor is the chest piece recipe. This is the only piece that can be purchased and obtained right away. It is sold for 1.5 million gold, so it's pretty expensive, just like the Hellfire Ring. And that one you can make right away. The other recipes you have to find. But those recipes will have a 50% chance to drop off bosses when you have a 5 stack of Nephilim Valor. So they're trying to give you a reason to fight bosses now in your farming routine. So you have a 50% chance off of getting one of these new recipes on the Skeleton King, Spider Queen, Magda, Zoltan Kuhl, Gom, Sadea, Rakanoth, Izul. So pretty much the main bosses here. Aside from end act bosses, it looks like. So there you go. And since you've got, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 different pieces of armor with a 50-50 chance, at bare minimum, you're looking at fighting 5 bosses. Let's just face it, with a 50-50, you might have an average of 10 fights you have to go through, probably more based on your random luck chance, obviously. But there you go. They're going to give you reason for putting bosses into your rotation. Now, added to this is a new gem type called the Marquis. This is some very expensive stuff here, and it's something I probably will never touch, considering I don't even have the highest level of gems that are currently available. But to those of you who've been out there playing quite a bit and who have the highest level gems, this is a way to push it further. They are basically going to allow you to make one more level of gem above what is currently available. And I believe this is in an effort to try and curb the amount of gems that are out there in the marketplace right now. There's really no reason to have more gems right now. Although I think this is only a band-aid on a greater problem. Gems do not get removed from the marketplace right now. For no real reason, honestly. They're better to be sold. There's no reason to ever get rid of your gems. They're not involved in any real major crafting recipes or anything like that. So I really think this is just a temporary measure. But another thing they have told us about is they're trying to modify the ruby effects in weapons, because they acknowledge fully that rubies are very weak compared to emeralds in weapons, since critical damage seems to be the way to go for everything. And they have decided they want to bring rubies up to a better level, especially since there are skills that don't use critical damage, such as sentries. And you may remember that I did a sentry build, and there was conversation about, well, it's a good build for certain things, but since DPS only goes up with critical damage, it suffers from that. Well, if you can get a good ruby that affects your damage, and it's just as good as an emerald per se, then that could make these builds even stronger. So I'm really looking forward to those changes. I would actually like to see a different choice for something to put into your weapon. There's really no reason to use anything other than an emerald, really, unless you're going for a very specific build, like say a thorns build. But even then, emeralds seem to win the day when I see most people considering gems for their weaponry. Now, we're also looking at some monster power changes, some that have really needed to happen. One is the monster power in public games. You will now be able to use monster power in public games. And it sounds like the way they're going to do this is they are going to make it so that when you choose a monster power, you may end up in a game by yourself at first. But they figure this is better to let that happen than to make it so that no one will ever join that game, making it so that it is only able to be used in a predetermined party. So we're going to see monster power happening in public games now. So if you don't have anybody on your friends list, perhaps you like doing public games, you now have an opportunity to use monster power in this patch, and that's really great to see. Included with that will be some experience bonuses for Inferno levels using monster power. There's been some debate about using monster power, whether it's worth it, and is it even efficient? A lot of people have been saying that using no monster power, or MP1 actually, is probably the most efficient, because at monster power 1, every monster is level 63, you get a decent boost to your experience. It's very minor, but the truth of the matter is you're killing faster in monster power 1 compared to any other monster power. So why would you ever use a higher monster power? It's not efficient. So what they're going to do is increase the experience gains on monster power games in Inferno. So as you can see down here, monster power 1 is going to give you a 25% increase to experience. So this is only really going to affect people that haven't hit Paragon level 100, and let's face it, that's probably a lot of us. So I will probably be happy to see this. But honestly, if you're looking for items, then it's not going to affect you really. The magic find is usually considered better even on lower monster powers, because a lot of people have theorized that it is better to kill things quickly and have a lower chance of getting an item than to take a long time to kill something and only have a marginal increase in the chance for a magical item to drop. So we'll have to see what they come up with in future here, because this right now is a band-aid for people that want to get their Paragon levels up, but it's not really going to entice people, I think, to increase their monster power levels right away. Now, the good news is you can see they have a decent boost here. You've got 25 at monster power 1, 50 at 2, 80% at 3, all the way up to a 500% increase in experience gain at monster power 10. So if you can handle monster power 10, you can really boost your experience gains. I have a feeling that someone's going to be able to put a lot of math into this and determine that experience gains are still going to be better somewhere between 1 and 10. I think that it'll be maybe better somewhere around the mid-range, somewhere between 3 to 6 maybe, because the killing speed still has an effect on how much experience you're getting. And just because you're getting a whole bunch of extra experience per kill doesn't mean that's good for you, because you may not be killing as quickly and it may not be worth the boost that you're getting. So we'll have to see what the major theorists come out with that one. So changes to monster affixes. They are going to make good on their promise to change reflect damage. Reflect damage will now have a very visible shield on the enemies that use it. It is toggleable, so it will not always be on. So for those of you who have builds that don't have life leech or anything like that, if you can't compensate for the reflect damage, you now can see it happen and you can decide to stop attacking when it does. Benefit to, again, we've been talking about the sentry build I made earlier. This is also going to benefit that, because reflect damage will no longer work on pets. So if you've got a pet build, witch doctors, demon hunters, etc., etc., we are not going to be penalized now for having our pets out, for having our sentries out. The reflect damage, when it goes up, will not be affected by them, so you don't have to worry about taking a whole bunch of damage. So for those who've been asking me, hey, what are you going to do about that? How do you compensate for that? Well, now you don't have to worry about it anymore, so that's good to see. Another change comes to Molten and Plagued affixed monsters. This one I kind of like to see as well, because they've acknowledged that Molten felt more punishing and Plagued was kind of meh. And I agree to that. I've seen monsters with Plague that I could stand in the pool of Plague for quite a while and not worry about it, and then there would be Molten ones which would just tear me up in seconds. So what they're doing is they're going to balance those out. They're going to reduce the damage of Molten, but they're going to increase the damage of Plagued. Now, since monsters can come with both affixes, I have a feeling that the difficulty level of a monster that has both is probably going to remain largely untouched. Usually when they do something like this, it's just a rebalancing, so the damage of each individual piece will be either better or worse to bring it on an even keel. They will probably be both just as dangerous. The difference being that Plagued has a larger radius than Molten, but when they're both out, they're probably going to be just as lethal as they are now. So that's what I'm expecting with that change there. I'll obviously be looking at these in the PTR when I get a chance, because they will be doing a PTR for this patch, and I will want to look into this. So lastly on the list here, we've got some quality of life changes. They've been talking about this, and it looks like they're going to make good on it. For one, removing the incremental resurrection timer when you die. Hardcore is unaffected. Well, because obviously when you die in hardcore, you stay dead. All right, so the incremental timer, that one where you stay dead for about 5 seconds and then it goes up to 10, 20, 30, whatever. Yeah, that annoying thing, it's gone. You will now have a constant 5-second death timer to deal with. And this is, honestly, I'm happy to see that, because honestly the incremental timer was only really a challenging thing back when monsters regenerated their health between lives and you were struggling to get back to that monster quickly. They've since removed that feature. Really, we don't need a reason to be punished for dying a lot of times. They agree that this is no longer a needed feature. They're taking it out. And lastly, they're increasing the base pickup radius by a small amount for gold and health globes. I can kind of understand that, because I have seen instances where you run over something and you don't quite pick up what you thought you did. So they want to bump that up a bit so it feels good to where you're picking stuff up. This is not going to be a massive increase. In fact, I'm honestly very surprised they even mention it. It seems like one of those minor things that we would have caught in a patch note, and it would have just been one of those minor things. But I guess they wanted to try and give us as much information as possible. So there you go. That's the major thing that's come out of this blog here. And, as you can see, those are kind of my thoughts on it to begin with. There are certainly good things here, such as dueling having more in it than I had originally anticipated. So I am glad to hear that. And then there's just a few different minor changes here and there. Buffs to monks and wizards, kind of nice to see, but at the same time, they don't exactly give a justification for why they're focusing on those two, other than to say other classes got quite a few buffs in previous patches, and now they wanted to focus on these two. They didn't exactly say why they felt that these particular abilities needed additional damage, other than the monks. That one definitely, off the top of my head, makes sense. You know, I've played a monk quite a bit. I haven't played the wizard as much, so maybe a few of you wizards out there might have a better idea of why these are being buffed. Maybe damages haven't felt that good. I don't really know. I can't speak for that one. The monk one, though, is definitely good to hear. I am honestly just anticipating the next major patch, the 1.1, the actual PvP patch we were supposed to get, because that is going to be when we start seeing some major changes to the game, and we start seeing things like more utility skills or more maneuverability skills getting added to monks and the like. So honestly, looking forward to it for certain things. Again, I'm still slightly disappointed about the way PvP has turned out, but I will bring up the PTR when it comes up. I'll take a look at it and try and report to you guys what it looks like, how it feels, and maybe we'll take a look at some of those recipes if I can grab them. So I should probably do some gold farming before the PTR comes out, so I'll be ready for it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Kage. That has been a quick look at the, well, not so quick look, 20-minute video worth of looking at a blog post regarding Diablo 3. Please feel free to discuss in the comment sections below. I will, of course, chime in on anything, or if you have questions. And let's look forward to this patch and see how it feels. All right, I'll see you next time.